I wasn't wearing much. Just a silk nightgown I'd thrown on after a too-hot shower in a too-small apartment. The kind that clings in all the wrong or maybe all the right places when the air is thick with summer. The city was humming that night, the kind of low, slow pulse that only happens when heat refuses to leave after sundown. I stepped out onto my tiny balcony barefoot, a glass of cold white wine in one hand. I needed air. Stillness. Something quiet to press against the noise inside me. And that's when I saw him. He was below. 2 floors down. Standing on his own balcony as if summoned by the same restless heat. Boxer briefs. Nothing else. The soft orange glow from his apartment poured out behind him, backlighting a body sculpted by something other than vanity, more like labor or maybe pain. He leaned on the railing, arms flexed, chest rising and falling with slow breath. He hadn't seen me yet. Or maybe he had and didn't care. I froze. It felt like a scene I'd walked into by accident. Or maybe one that had been waiting for me. Because the second his eyes lifted, slowly, deliberately, and found mine through the warm air, I swear something in me shifted. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just looked. And I looked back. Not a word between us. Just the electric hum of a summer night, the distance between 2 balconies, and the sudden, impossible gravity of being seen. Not as a neighbor. Not as a stranger. But as a woman. My fingers tightened around the stem of the wineglass. Something about the way he held that gaze, like he knew exactly what kind of dream he'd stepped into, and he wasn't about to let it slip, made it hard to breathe. I didn't move. And neither did he. I'd only moved in a week ago. Boxes still lined my hallway, the fridge was nearly empty, and the walls were bare except for the patchy remains of someone else's memories. I hadn't met many neighbors yet. Just a few polite nods in the elevator, a tired smile from the mailman. But I'd heard him. Late-night footsteps above mine. Music drifting through the walls, bluesy, slow, the kind that curls around your skin when you're alone. Sometimes I'd catch laughter. Low. Private. Like he only ever gave parts of himself to the night. I didn't even know his name. But in that moment, on that balcony, he felt familiar. Like a word I'd forgotten, resting just behind my lips. He didn't look away. Neither did I. Something passed between us, unspoken, undeniable. Not flirtation, not really. Something quieter. Heavier. As if the heat itself had conspired to trap us both there, still and staring, while the rest of the world carried on without us. I shifted my weight, the edge of the railing pressing into my bare thighs. My nightgown brushed against me, whisper soft, and I wondered if he could see how tightly my arms were folded, how my breath had changed. A breeze moved through, lifting strands of my hair across my face. He tilted his head, just slightly, a flicker of amusement, maybe, or interest. It was impossible to tell. But it did something to me. Like being read. Seen. Noticed. Desired. I sipped my wine, mostly to steady my hand. He hadn't moved. Not once. Still leaning, still watching. And somehow that stillness was louder than any approach. The air between us felt thick. Almost touchable. Like I could reach across the dark and trail my fingers through it, find his skin at the other end. I wasn't used to being watched like that. Not stared at. Not studied. But this wasn't hunger the way I'd known it. It wasn't fast or greedy. It was slower. Intentional. Like he was savoring the moment before the flame met the wick. My heart tapped against my ribs, too loud, too uneven. I wondered what he saw, a woman in a nightgown, bare-legged and barefoot, pretending not to lean toward the rail every time his eyes lingered too long. Or maybe he saw exactly what I felt, that pull, that ache, that strange and terrifying wish for something to happen. The heat pressed against me like hands. My skin was damp at the curve of my neck, under my hair, along the backs of my knees. I didn't wipe it away. I let it sit there, a secret sheen, lit by the spill of apartment light and moon. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. Something about him made it impossible to play the usual games. There was no room for flirtation, no space for rehearsed charm or carefully bent posture. There was just that look, heavy, unwavering, and the way my body kept answering it in pulses I couldn't control. He shifted, finally. Just a little. Ran a hand slowly through his hair, dragging his fingers down the back of his neck like the heat was getting to him too. I watched every movement like it was sacred. I felt it like it was mine. Then his gaze dropped from my face to my collarbone to the line where my nightgown slipped loose over one shoulder. It was only a glance. But it undid me. I turned to go. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd do next. Maybe I wanted to see if he'd follow. But I felt it, the weight of his eyes still on me as I stepped inside, heart pounding, lips parted, every inch of me awake. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay on top of the sheets, the fan humming lazily above as if mocking the way my thoughts spun without mercy. My skin still carried the imprint of his gaze, warm, almost bruised with wanting. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, that slow breath, those dark eyes, the slight twitch in his jaw like he was holding something back. I could still feel the nightgown sliding off my shoulder, the way the air kissed the skin it left behind. I didn't pull it back up. At some point, I got up, restless, flushed, certain I'd made it all up. I stood by the window, half hidden behind the curtain, and looked down. His lights were still on. And he was still there. Not outside, but just beyond the glass of his apartment, shirtless, pacing slow like he couldn't settle either. The way his hand moved through his hair, again and again, made something tighten low in my stomach. He hadn't seen me yet, or maybe he had and was waiting, playing his own version of restraint. My fingers touched the edge of the window frame. What would happen if I opened it? If I stepped out, barefoot again, and let my body speak where words wouldn't dare? Would he come up? Would he wait for an invitation that neither of us had spoken aloud but both of us had already answered? I didn't go out. Not yet. I let the curtain fall and backed away. Slowly. Like I'd touched something sacred. Or dangerous. And for a long time I just stood there. Trembling. Wanting. Half of me aching to open the door. The other half already imagining what it would feel like if he did. It was after midnight when I heard it. One soft knock, so quiet, I thought maybe I dreamed it. Then another. A pause. And then silence. I froze. Barefoot again, heart drumming against the hush of the apartment. I moved slowly, barely breathing toward the door. There was no peephole. Just a wall, a door, and the heavy presence of someone on the other side. I didn't ask who it was. I knew. My hand hovered over the handle. For a full heartbeat, I thought about not opening it. About turning back, hiding in the dark, letting this remain a fantasy, the perfect unfinished thing. But some part of me had already answered that knock the moment I'd stepped onto the balcony. I opened it. And there he was. Still shirtless. A light sheen of sweat on his collarbone. Boxer briefs clinging low like he hadn't bothered, or hadn't wanted, to dress for the walk upstairs. His chest rose with slow, deep breaths. And his eyes. God. That look. It wasn't polite. It wasn't playful. It was quiet and raw and full of need. We didn't speak. Not even a whisper. Just a breath between us, mine shaky, his steady. And then, his hand lifted. Slow. Careful. Fingers brushing a strand of hair from my face, trailing down to the curve of my jaw, lingering there. I didn't step back. I leaned in. It wasn't a kiss, not yet. But it was closer than anything I'd ever felt. The heat of his palm, the tremble in my own hand as I reached for his waist, the way our bodies seemed to hum just from proximity. Something inside me fell apart. And something else came alive. He didn't ask to come in. He didn't need to. But I paused for just a second. My hand gripped the doorknob, breath caught somewhere between fear and that hot, pulsing want that throbbed all the way down to my bones. What if I'd imagined all of this? What if he was just curious? What if I was already too deep, and to him I was just a body? But then I remembered that look. The way he saw not just my skin but me. The quiet version. The fragile one. The one I barely recognized in the mirror. I opened the door. He stood there like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. Half-dressed, skin damp with heat, chest rising with slow, steady breath. His eyes held no doubt. I stepped aside. And he walked in. We didn't touch right away. He moved slowly, barefoot, silent, like a shadow, yet his presence was felt in every corner of the room. Like the air itself had shifted when he entered. My nightgown clung to me like breath. He stopped. Looked at me. And for the first time I saw something in his eyes that wasn't just desire but recognition. Acceptance. Like I already belonged here in this moment, in his hands. His fingers touched my face gently at first, exploring. Then slid down the side of my neck, pausing at the hollow above my collarbone. The skin there was hot. Sensitive. He didn't rush. And I wasn't breathing anymore. I was unraveling. My hands found his waist on their own, his skin warm, tight, electric under my touch. I ran my palm across his stomach, feeling the quiet tension, the slight recoil of muscles under my fingers. He didn't move. But the stillness between us was charged, a wild, quiet pressure that told us both, one more second, and we'll break. He leaned in but didn't kiss me. His lips brushed near mine, barely leaving a trail of heat that lingered. His breath grazed my cheek, then my neck. His hand moved lower to my shoulder. His fingers touched the strap of my nightgown, already slipping down. He didn't ask. He just waited. And I answered with my body leaning in, tightening my grip on his skin, thighs almost touching his. Then he slid the nightgown off me slowly, like he was unwrapping something sacred. His gaze never left my body. And I felt it. He wasn't just removing fabric. He was stripping away silence, loneliness, fear. He saw everything and didn't turn away. When our bodies finally touched, it wasn't an explosion. It was a soft surrender. His hands moved across me with reverence, tracing every curve like he was looking for peace beneath my skin. I trembled beneath his touch. Everywhere his fingers traveled, my spine, the line of my hips, the inside of my arms felt like it had been waiting for this. His lips met my skin slowly, not rushed, not hungry. He kissed my shoulder, my collarbone, my neck. A low sound, barely a murmur, vibrated near my ear. I don't know what he said, it wasn't words. It was presence. Intention. A quiet fire we had both stopped trying to contain. It wasn't passion. It was closeness. We weren't chasing a climax. We stayed in the moment, in the whisper of skin, in the kind of touch that gave more than it took. We weren't holding each other, but we were close. His hand rested on my side, fingers gently brushing the space beneath my ribs, like he was still listening to my breath. My thigh draped lightly against his, skin to skin. The heat between us wasn't burning anymore. It had settled. Rooted. I could hear him breathing. Slow. Deep. Like something inside him had quieted too. His fingers moved along my side, no purpose, no rhythm, just there. It wasn't a touch meant to excite, but a quiet confirmation. You're here, I'm here, we're breathing in sync. I closed my eyes. My chest rose and fell. My hair clung to the damp curve of my neck, but I didn't move. It wasn't discomfort, it was real. His lips found my shoulder. One soft kiss. Gentle. Not a tease, but a thank you. And the silence between us, it wasn't emptiness anymore. It felt like shelter. Like a room without walls. I reached for his hand on my body. Slowly. Fingertips tracing lightly like a breath across skin. And he gripped me a little tighter, not roughly, just enough to say, I'm here. I'm staying. In the dark, I smiled. To myself. Not from joy, but from that strange, quiet peace that comes when there's nothing left to perform. When no one asks who you were before this moment. And no one makes you decide who you'll be after.